Chapter 81 God's Forbidden Zone, Gene Lock, that's good. Feeling Zhao Ziyan's firmness, Yang Mo didn't persuade her anymore. Later, look at the other researchers in the office, immediately ordered. Start the Mandui chip implantation experiment from now on. Now, the third round of trials has entered the 23rd day. Soon, the fourth round of trials will follow. They must take advantage of the rare gap period to analyze the truth about the Mandui chip. That night, Dai in the laboratory, Zhao Ziyan, whose head was shaved, was lying on the experimental table, with various testing instruments attached to her body, closely monitor her physical changes. Are you ready? A medical staff member in a white coat walked toward her with an anesthetic needle. Zhao Ziyan took a deep breath. He nodded solemnly. As the anesthetic entered her body, her consciousness gradually became blurred vaguely. Only a few researchers were seen surrounding her, seemingly performing a chip insertion operation. 3 hours later, the operation is completed. Her brain was successfully connected to the Mandui chip. 6 hours later, her eyelids trembled slightly, and she gradually regained consciousness. She is about to wake up. Hurry up, monitor all physical data. The researchers were excited and stared at each monitoring instrument intently. Above, all the parameters of Zhao Ziyan's body are clearly displayed. In addition to the most basic body temperature, blood pressure, heart rate, and breathing. It also includes brainwaves, blood flow speed, hematopoiesis speed, targeted genes, cell strength, etc. Hiss. Her statistics are soaring like crazy. Soon everyone noticed the abnormality and couldn't help but gasp. In the instrument, the data displayed have doubled in a short period of time. The researchers did not dare to neglect and quickly recorded all the data. 9 hours later, experiment bench. Zhao Ziyan fully regained consciousness and looked at the ceiling blankly. How do you feel? Yang Mo's face came into view. I feel, my thinking is particularly active. Zhao Ziyan felt it carefully and was quite surprised. My memory has become clearer than ever before. I can even remember everything about my birth clearly. After waking up, she found that there were many strange memory fragments in her mind. In these memories, she could even see the faces of the doctors and nurses who helped deliver her when she was born. In the sensory domain, perception domain, attention domain, memory domain, thinking domain, reasoning domain, and judgment domain monitored by her brain all show signs of superactivity, far exceeding the normal state of 7 times. The researchers on the site exclaimed, their faces full of disbelief. Brain monitoring shows Zhao Ziyan's brain seems to be being redeveloped at an alarming rate. I see. No wonder the Book of Mountains and Seas records that the sacred wood Mandui can make people holy and wise. Yang Mo's expression moved slightly, and he vaguely reacted, holy wisdom. In fact, it refers to loading a biochip for brain redevelopment? Dean, we have made a major discovery. At this moment, several researchers hurried into the laboratory with a lot of information. His face turned red, breathing heavily, but the look on his face was one of ecstasy. We resequenced Zhao Ziyan's DNA and found that in her DNA double helix structure, a large number of new genomes were added to the long chain of deoxynucleotides connected. No, to be precise, this is not a brand new genome, they are all unexplored genetic sequences in the human body. They have it in their hands. It is the sequencing map of the gene sequence. While Zhao Ziyan was in coma, they drew blood from her body many times and conducted NDA analysis and testing. Not only her brain, her genes are being fully developed? After hearing this, Yang Mo's pupils shrank sharply, reacted instantly and not bad. Several researchers looked at each other and became more and more excited as they talked. The Mandui chip seems to be a key. Under its action, 10 of Zhao Ziyan's body 20,000 gene sequences are being opened at an alarming rate. Hear this, Yang Mo couldn't help but gasped and looked at Zhao Ziyan excitedly. Comprehensive genetic development, he didn't expect it. The virgin Mandui cultivated from 12-sided crystals is actually the key to the human body's genetic treasure house. Dean, what are you talking about? Zhao Ziyan, who was lying on the experimental table, was confused and asked with a confused look on her face. Congratulations, you have received a great blessing. Yang Mo turned around and looked at her with a smile. For now, the implantation experiment of Mandui chip has no side effects. On the contrary, its function is extremely powerful, and it has secretly developed the 120,000 gene sequences in Zhao Ziyan's body. What destiny! Zhao Ziyan blinked her eyes and became even more confused. I just feel that my thinking has become clearer, and nothing else seems to have changed. You should be able to feel it when the chip is fully functional. Yang Mo smiled, and then explained to Zhao Ziyan what gene development is. As the name suggests, there are 120,000 gene sequences in the human body. The data information is so vast and complex that even the storage devices on the entire planet cannot complete the storage, but such complex genetic sequence information is all stored in the small DNA in the human body. Zumeru incorporates mesons and nothing more than that. The 120,000 gene sequences contained in DNA determine all the characteristics of the human species. It's just, only 1% of DNA is controllable, the remaining 99% has been solidified and is responsible for carrying the appearance, shape, organs, bones and other characteristics of the human body. That's why human reproduction will only give birth to humans, not sudden mutations like pigs. Somewhere it seems like there is a locked 99% of the genetic sequence. Americans are used to calling it God's Forbidden Zone, and researchers from various countries then call it gene lock. The gene lock is opened, which is equivalent to various restrictions being broken. Yang Mo looked at Zhao Ziyan and continued, "You will no longer be bound by the upper limit. Thinking, physical fitness, reaction, consciousness, 5 senses and other fields will be greatly improved. Cell potential and brain wisdom will also be developed in all aspects in the future." Actually, you can often see the news about opening genetic locks. For example, a certain mother caught her daughter who fell from a building. She had never trained and her speed exceeded that of the sprint champion. An old man lifted the truck to save his grandson, and so on. It's just that they happened to break the genetic lock restrictions in a critical situation. It is not permanent. In Zhao Ziyan, the gene lock in the body was opened by the Mandui chip in an unknown and mysterious method. He will also become the first person in global history to permanently open the genetic lock. Chapter 82 Yaoqi Biotechnology Cultivation Base. 8 hours later, inside the laboratory. A burst of cheers broke out. 100%. 120,000 gene sequences, all unlocked. After gene sequencing analysis, the DNA genes sampled from Zhao Ziyan's body were finally permanently unlocked, including Yang Mo. Everyone focused their attention on Zhao Ziyan. "How do you feel now?" Yang Mo smiled and asked curiously. I don't seem to be human now." Zhao Ziyan carefully felt her own changes and said with some uncertainty, "Her vision, hearing, perception, and other abilities have undergone earth-shaking changes. The whole world in front of her eyes. It seemed like a new look, extremely clear." She looked at Yang Mo and others. "It's like humans looking at ants, looking at another species. Quick, come with me to draw a few tubes of blood." The researchers on the side saw this and hurriedly stepped forward, dragged Zhao Ziyan into the blood collection room for DNA sampling and analysis. At the same time, other scientific researchers have also prepared various testing instruments. Pull Zhao Ziyan, conduct tests on strength, reflexes, thought conduction, nerve transmission, etc. That afternoon, the detailed data after the gene lock was opened was sent to Yang Mo's desk. The degree of brain development has reached 20%. The thinking logic and brain calculation capabilities far exceed Einstein's. The ability to survive and fight has awakened, and the visual perception. Looking at these reports, Yang Mo reluctantly he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. My heart was shocked. This is where the genetic lock is opened. This is obviously a small jump in the level of life. No wonder Zhao Ziyan feels that she is no longer a human being. This is what Queen Mother she really wants. Yang Mo took a deep breath. With a cold light shining in his eyes. So far that he finally determined the true function of the Hollywood Mandui. In the classic of Mountains and Seas, the Queen Mother of the West is a demon clan who comes in the late stages of the civilization trial. There is no doubt about its strength. Only a chip that can open the gene lock is worthy of him living in Kunlun Mountain to study and cultivate. It's just, what he can't understand is the Queen Mother of the West is a demon clan. Why does she want to study the human race's gene lock opening method? And among the many miraculous plants cultivated by the Queen Mother of the West, Mandui is just one of them. Other plants, what are the functions of flat peach, jujube, and pear? Never mind this for now. Yang Mo shook his head and forcibly dispelled these thoughts. Lower your head. He looked at the report on the table. A crazy idea emerged in my mind. Although the technology of this chip is very complex, it cannot be copied at China's current technological level, but he can definitely imitate the Queen Mother of the West. In turn, monsters are used as nourishment to mass-produce Mandui chips. Just think about it, when every Chinese researcher unlocks the gene lock, beyond the limits of the human body, the brain is fully developed, and the wisdom far exceeds that of Einstein. I need a lot of Mandui chips. Yang Mo clenched his fists. picked up a pen and paper, and quickly wrote down a brand new plan on the table, even if you know that the mastermind behind the 12-sided crystal is the Queen Mother of the West. But he had no choice. The civilization trial becomes more terrifying as it goes on. China seems to be doing well now, but in fact it is full of crises. He must try every means to improve China's overall strength as soon as possible. Yan Jing. In the conference room, the United States has absorbed so many scientists again. Several leaders frowned, with a hint of worry in their expressions. These days, the United States is frantically attracting top talents from around the world, and its population has expanded by tens of millions. Let them always have a sense of crisis. Although China has achieved good results so far, there is no guarantee that it will not be overtaken by latecomers from the United States. Chief Dean Yang from the Institute has sent a piece of top-secret information. At this moment, the guard opened the door and walked in. Information? Several leaders looked at each other, somewhat delighted. Did Dean Yang make another breakthrough? Let me see. Wang Yu took the documents and opened them in front of everyone. The other leaders stepped forward one after another. On the file, what catches the eye? There are 10 big characters. Yaoqi Biotechnology Cultivation Base. That you want to build a new base. Wang Yu couldn't help but be stunned and continued to read with doubts. Looking at it, he discovered that what Yang Mo wanted to build was not a simple base. It is a part of the science fiction heavenly plan. It's just that the two country-killing weapons are different from the Book of Life and Death and Demon Mirror. Its positioning is not combat-oriented. It is a research and development and cultivation based. It is used to develop the Hollywood Mandui recorded in the Classic of Mountains and seized to achieve a jump in the life level of the whole country. Hiss. After reading the plan, everyone's pupils trembled slightly and they took a breath of air. In this information, Yang Mo revealed many secrets, including the true identity of Xingmu Mandui, which is actually a type of biochip. 5,000 years ago, the Queen Mother of the West once fed the ancient ancestors with the fruits of the immortal tree, and those immortal people became nutrients, and then cultivated miraculous plants such as the sacred wood Mandui. The real function of the Mandui chip, it is to open the human body's genetic lock and achieve a small jump in life level. Therefore, Yang Mo plans to imitate the Queen Mother of the West and build the legendary Yaoqi, using the 12-sided crystal as the core and monster corpses as nutrients to cultivate the sacred wood Mandui in batches. Preliminary budget. At least 50,000 monster corpses are needed as fertilizer. 50,000. The military leader was the first to come to his senses and smiled bitterly. This plan of Yang Mo, that's crazy. Where can he get 50,000 monster corpses for Yang Mo? That's not necessarily the case. Wang Yu suddenly raised his head and said, we don't have it in our country, but the situation in many surrounding countries is not optimistic. Although they have been providing Demon Mirror assistance services, but the national power of these small countries is really too weak. There is no way to completely suppress the monster. Under the infection of 001 undead, the number of monsters has increased a lot. You mean to go abroad to help them exterminate monsters? The military leader frowned, but in this case, for my Chinese soldiers, there may be a lot of casualties. No need for soldiers to take action. Wang Yu shook his head and reminded, I remember that Yang Mo reported it not long ago that the energy system of the Book of Life and Death weapon has been upgraded. Its coverage is no longer limited to China. After initially digesting the controllable nuclear fusion technology nowadays, a new generation of technological revolution has been launched in various fields in China. Book of Life and Death. The energy system of this country governing device has also been upgraded and can radiate to neighboring countries not far away. Just use this weapon, there will be as many monster corpses as you want. The leaders looked at each other, still hesitant. After all, Book of Life and Death, a strategic country-level weapon, puts a heavy load on China every time it is used. Aren't you just worried that the United States has absorbed a large number of scientists from various countries this time? Wang Yu took a deep breath and reminded, Dean Yang's information clearly states that the Mandui chip can unlock the human body's genes and allow the brain to be developed like never before. Opening the genes, the wisdom of those who lock themselves will be far greater than anyone in human history. Chapter 83. The Body Kingdom is in danger. China takes action. The words just fell. The expressions of several old men brightened and they came forward again, looked carefully at the information in Wang Yu's hand. As expected, attached is the detailed data of Zhao Ziyan, the first experimenter in China to unlock the gene lock. If this is true, everyone is like a dragon. It is really possible for China to make everyone like a dragon. The old man from the Ministry of Science and Technology was trembling, unable to conceal the excitement in his heart. The rest of the old people, the same face, was full of shock and could not calm down for a long time with this moment. They finally understood why Yang Emo launched the Yaoqi Biotechnology Cultivation Base plan. Planting the sacred wood mandui is imperative. I agree with Dean Yang's plan. The old man from the Ministry of Science and Technology took a deep breath and was the first to express his stance. Immediately afterwards, the other old men nodded one after another without any objection. We in China have more than 10 neighboring countries. Which one is in the most critical situation now? First of all, excluding the Bangzi country and the Sakura country, even if we are short of monster corpses, it's impossible to help them. Everyone, have you forgotten that the country has a population of 300 million, and the situation is also very critical now? Yes, it's Pakistan. After repeated discussions, a few people looked at each other. Eventually, the target of assistance was determined to be the Pakistan Iron Country. This country borders the southwest border of China and has always had a very good relationship with China. That year, when China got rid of a century-old history of humiliation, it was the Batigo who was the first to stand up and recognize China. Work closely with China. The relationship continues to this day, has always been a solid ally of China. If you want to select aid targets from neighboring countries, other countries have to step aside. At the same time, Batigo, with the alliance of monsters from the 3 tribes, the officials of Batigo are already extremely busy. More than 10 cities fell, more than tens of millions of people are controlled by monsters and become blood food. Military. Several attacks were launched in an attempt to rescue these people and regain control of the city, but all failed. The number of monsters is constantly rising. Military Office, Minister, the Intelligence Department estimates that the total number of monsters in the 19 cities that our country has fallen will soon exceed 100,000. Faze listened to the report from his men. A sad face. Monster. No longer satisfied with hiding in the dark, it is speeding up its development crazily. I won't take back those 19 cities again. The number of monsters will increase exponentially until tens of millions of people are transformed into monsters. At that time, the situation will be completely out of control. The 3rd level undead and the 2nd level loudspeaker are too difficult to deal with. He sighed, looking a little desperate. As the head of the military, he has directed no fewer than 10 counterattacks, but they were all blocked by the combat power of these top monsters. The military strength of the body kingdom is not very strong. It barely ranks among the top 50 in the world. As for the research on extraordinary beings, they lack scientific and technological background and have only given birth to 10 extraordinary beings so far, and they are all 1st level. Thankfully, China has always provided them with Demon Mirror assistance, which enabled them to uncover domestic 002 imitators. Otherwise, the situation will get out of control faster. How about launch another counterattack? He gritted his teeth and prepared to try again. Just at this time, a subordinate hurried in, looking extremely excited. Minister, the Chinese official has sent a notice that can help our country solve the monster crisis. Hear this. Faye's eyes suddenly widened. He suddenly grabbed the shoulder of his subordinate, asked in disbelief, "What did you say?" China said they can take action to help our country solve the monster crisis, but all monster corpses killed must belong to them. BR, the subordinate said excitedly with his face flushed. China takes action? Faze took a breath of air and was so shocked by this huge happiness that he could not react. The price, just all the monster corpses. Give it to them, as long as they can help us, we can give us anything we want. His eyes were red, like a drowning man grabbing the last life-saving straw. At this moment, compared with the continuation of the race, everything seems insignificant. One day later, Beatty Kingdom. Airport. An armed transport plane from China landed slowly. Faze, along with all the senior leaders of the Pakistan Iron Kingdom, welcomed the Chinese reinforcements in a grand manner. As the hatch opens, Zhang Yangguang walked down with the people from the demon hunting team. On sight, thunderous cheers suddenly sounded out. Everyone, including Faze, looked at Zhang Yangguang and others as if they were looking at a savior. Well, when will our large army arrive? Faze stepped forward and asked with concern, a large army? Zhang Yangguang was stunned for a moment. What a large army? Didn't China say that it would send troops to assist our country? A large follow-up force. Faze blinked and reminded tactfully, the number of monsters in our country has climbed to 100,000. And the situation is very serious. Severe, said. He glanced at the demon hunting team behind Zhang Yangguang calmly. Only 100 people, obviously these people are the vanguard of China. There is no follow-up force. Zhang Yangguang laughed and explained, "Our country sent our demon hunting team here." "Just, you guys?" Faze swallowed, looking a little confused. Although China is powerful, the position belongs to the most powerful country in the world, but their hundreds of thousands of standing troops of the Body Kingdom failed to suppress the monsters in the country. China, just send 100 people, are they really not here for tourism? How about, you go back and ask your superiors for instructions and send more people over? Faze smiled bitterly and advised tactfully, no need. Zhang Yangguang waved his hand, subsequently glancing at the surprised Faze. He explained, "From now on, we will deal with the monsters in your country. You just need to prepare transport planes and large ships to transport the corpses of these monsters. Just ship it to our country." Finished to ignore everyone's suspicious looks, immediately took out the satellite communication equipment and contacted the country. Everyone stared at him with big eyes. "Look at me, let me look at you." Suddenly I felt at a loss. Is China going to use that weapon? Faye's heart trembled, and a thought flashed through his mind, but, as far as he knows, that mysterious weapon seems to have geographical restrictions and can only be used within China. Could it be that? Can I still choose any area to kill monsters? At the same time, Northern Frontier Book of Life and Death Research and Development Control Base, start. Song Gaoyun received the highest order from Yang Mo and immediately entered his authority. After more than 10 complicated procedures, the ground throughout the base quietly trembled along the long border of China. Tens of thousands of brainwave base stations are in action. A vague dragon roar, quietly echoing in the sky. 10 minutes later, Book of Life and Death is fully revived. Under the intertwined vibrations of thousands of brainwave base stations, the locked range was shifted to the southwest border. This is where the Badi Kingdom is. Chapter 84 Mom, who is Huaxia. Next, all abnormal brainwave frequencies in the country are captured by thousands of base stations, collected into the core database of Book of Life and Death. Except for the 002 imitators, the brainwaves of 001 Undead and 003 Loudspeaker are all recorded in the Book of Life and Death. Erase. Song Gaoyun took a deep breath and entered the final command I in the database. A series of corresponding commands were issued. Emitted from the Wanzhou brainwave base station. It turned into bursts of dragon roars, remote and clear. Bataigui Capital Airport. No, sonic attack. Accompanied by an exclamation, the entire airport was on alert, and everyone looked to the sky in horror. This moment. A clear and long sound came from the east, faintly visible. It seems like there is nothing. Could it be that the loudspeaker has broken through to the third level? Faye's pupils shrank sharply, subconsciously thinking of monsters. A first-level loudspeaker whose sound waves can penetrate a kilometer range. A second-level loudspeaker whose sound waves can penetrate a range of 10,000 meters. The third-level loudspeaker. He gritted his teeth and looked extremely ugly. Are these crazy monsters planning to attack their capital? Don't panic, General. Zhang Yangguang noticed the strangeness of everyone and explained, "This sound is not made by monsters, but by me, Huaxia, who activated the Book of Life and Death." The words just finished throughout the airport. The senior officials of Pakistan Railway State showed shocked expressions. Faze swallowed and couldn't help but ask, "That weapon of yours can really radiate abroad?" This weapon, all the nations have heard of it, but not much is known about it. He never thought about it. China can actually control this weapon and use it against monsters from other countries. Not bad. Zhang Yangguang nodded with a smile, his face full of pride. The Book of Life and Death is the weapon of our country to control the country, and its power cannot be limited to the country. In the words of the Dean, this is only version 2.0 of Book of Life and Death. After China's technological level is fully upgraded, the scope of Book of Life and Death radiation will no longer be limited to neighboring countries, but will cover the whole world in the future, even radiating all the heavens and all realms, determining the life and death of all living beings with just one word. Now, all the 001 immortals and 003 loudspeakers in your country should have been wiped out. Then Nutty looked at Faze, who was stunned on the spot, and reminded, "You can prepare and start to recover the 19 fallen cities." The monster, so quickly dead? Faze, who was still in shock, took a breath and showed an expression of disbelief. All the time, they only heard the legend of the mysterious weapon in China, but no one has ever come across it. No one knows how to kill monsters. Come when he wants. At least do this first, then that, and finally this, instead of casually wiping out a country's monsters in such an understatement. Minister, there is an urgent military situation on the front line. At this moment, the liaison officer from the Military Intelligence Department hurried over, out of breath. In Kashmir City, the monsters suddenly died. In Sin City, all the monsters died mysteriously. Khyber City, a series of 19 frontline battle reports. The content is surprisingly consistent. The monsters that invaded the city and enslaved the people all died suddenly. This Fei's heart trembled and he couldn't help but look at Zhang Yongguang and others. This moment. He finally understood why China only sent more than 100 reinforcements. Not arrogant. It's completely unnecessary. The monster that made them miserable is really vulnerable in the eyes of China. At the same time, Kashmir City. This is a city of 2 million people. Since being invaded by monsters, the entire city was shrouded in the fear of death. Monsters break into residential buildings every day, killing and devouring them in front of the survivors. There are also people assimilated by monsters. Their consciousness has been wiped out, and they have become fellow monsters. In this city, the figure of the monster everywhere. But at this time, some people were surprised to find that the monsters roaming unscrupulously outside suddenly stopped moving. The monsters are all asleep? The frightened people carefully looked at the monsters outside through the windows. A bloody person, he even picked up weapons such as rocks and kitchen knives and threw them at the monsters. And no matter what actions they made, the monsters lying on the ground remained motionless. It's like dead. The monsters, will they all be dead? A thought emerged in the minds of every surviving citizen, but no one dares to really get close to these monsters, and no one knows whether the monsters are pretending to be dead, until, as military transport vehicles drove into the city, military broadcasts rang in the streets and alleys. Dear people of the Badi Kingdom, with the help of China, all the monsters in Kashmir City have been confirmed to be dead. Kashmir City has been recovered. After hearing the broadcast, the survivors all walked out excitedly, feeling the joy of surviving the disaster welling up in their hearts. Many people cried with joy, standing on both sides of the street, welcoming the arrival of the military. Mom, who is Hua Xia? Did he avenge his father and kill these monsters? In the crowd, a little girl of only 5 years old asked curiously, innocent and childish voice. Soon he was lost in the crowd. A woman trembled, squatted down, and held her 5-year-old daughter in her arms, eyes red, but he still said warmly, China is another country. They sent people to save us. The people of China are so powerful. The little girl clapped her hands and said with admiration, yeah, they have always been great. The woman stroked her daughter's forehead and said softly, China, this is a name that has been passed down in her country from generation to generation from her ancestors, ever since she can remember. I have heard too many stories about China, brilliant culture, long history, profound heritage. The ancestors mention China. The look on his face is full of yearning. This is China. The woman looked at the corpse of the monster not far away, feeling bitter in her heart. Obviously 70 years ago, the strength of our two countries was almost the same. For nearly 300 years, China once fell to a low point, failed to recover, and was bullied by other countries. The national power is similar to them, but this magical country has been catching up in the past 70 years. That speed it once terrified the whole world. The gap between their two countries, it is also getting bigger and bigger. The former became a global superpower. Their national strength is still around 50 in the world, and she has studied abroad and met many people from China. They are low-key and humble, but the pride and confidence in their bones cannot be hidden at all. Everyone seems to have an obsession. China should not be second to others, it should be first. Even now it's not. In the future, it will definitely be the case.